Good morning and welcome to Friday. Here we are, the fifth day of the week, and we're going into our fifth day of our exploration of Hebrews chapter 2. And we're hoping to come away with one or two or three bits of something that we can mull around in our mind, we can chew on, we can think about through the day, and the Holy Spirit can meet us there and cause that bread of life, that word, to become spiritual life to us, invigorating our spirit, transforming and challenging our mind, our will, and our emotions, and even having an influence, I can get those words out, on our physical selves. You know what the ultimate effect upon our physical self is going to be? Resurrection. That's ultimately what's going to happen. He's going to provide for us a brand new physical self so that we can be merged spirit. We are spirit, we are soul, we are body, and we are divinely intended to live perpetually in that unity, spirit, soul, and body, as the full expression of humanity. God has been pleased to make us. He called it very good, and He has ever since then been correcting the mistakes of the enemy and of humanity that have damaged them in their spirit, their soul, and their body. He's a great healer. He's a great restorer. So let's go ahead, clear that info away, and jump right into Meditations in Hebrews, where it says in verses 12 through 15, well, we're going to pick up just a few, 12 through 15, there's 2 slides today. He says, I will declare your name to my brothers and sisters. In the assembly, I will sing your praises. And again, I will put my trust in Him. And again, he says, here am I and the children God has given me. This is excerpted from the Psalms. This is the only scriptures they had, with the Psalms and the prophets. And here is a declaration of the Messiah. He is going to declare the name of the Lord to his brothers and sisters in the assembly. I will sing your praises. I will put my trust in Him. Here am I and the children God has given me. These are prophetic glimpses of the Son of God, the Messiah, and His identification with you and I. He delights to identify with us. He identified with us completely. Now, we always have the opportunity when we identify with somebody. We're either stuck with a group or we are delighted to be with a group. Do you remember being put on teams in PE class? Sometimes you were glad to be on that team. Other times you were rather upset because somehow you had been stuck with all the poorest players in that game, whether it was duck, duck, goose, or whatever it was. When you were divided up into teams, sometimes it was like, yes, because you knew the players and you knew we're going to dominate this PE class. There were other times it was like, we don't have a chance. You were completely discouraged before you even got the game started. And then the excuses would start by the other players. I'm sorry, I'm just not very good at this, and so on. There was a tremendous amount of humility going around in that small group, and you found yourself not enjoying being on the team, not identifying in the least, and chafing against it the entire time. I know I walked through that, and I'm sure there were times that I was the guy that caused them to be disappointed. It's funny how that works out that way, moving through your elementary and middle school and on into high school experience. Now, when Jesus identifies with us, He identifies willingly and completely, and He doesn't go around complaining and moaning and fussing. Aren't you glad to hear that? It's the truth. He says, here am I. I'm going to declare your name amongst my brothers and sisters. Here am I, the children God has given me. And so there is a sense of a joy. We've already picked up on that he has been given joy by God in order to carry this out. Let's not forget that. He does that with joy. And then we can move on to this next part. Since the children have flesh and blood, he too shared in their humanity, so that by his death he might break the power of him who holds the power of death, that is, the devil, and free those who all their lives were held in slavery by their fear of death. Jesus has completely identified with us, even to the point, the Son of God identified with us completely, because he shared completely in our humanity. You can always refer to the book of Philippians, where Paul kind of sketches out for us from another angle and talks about him emptying himself and taking upon himself the form of a servant. That's a direct connection to this idea that we find here towards the end of the 2nd chapter of Hebrews. A complete identification with humanity, so that by his death he might break the power of him who holds the power of death, up until the time of the death of Jesus. And by the way, we know he was laid in a borrowed tomb and raised again on the 3rd day, and is now alive and seated at the right hand of God. Up until that time of his death, the enemy, Satan, had power and authority over that. But this clearly teaches us that until Jesus died, that's how it was. But from Jesus forward, it was a whole new economy. He was no longer, and if you want to consult the 1st and 2nd chapter of the book of Revelation, you get a revelation there of the ascended, glorified Jesus. And he says, through his angel that he sent to John, he gives this message: behold, I am he who was dead, and now I am alive forevermore. We see pictured in that revelation that he has been given keys. He's taken keys. He's taken power and authority. Well, that fear of death no longer needs to rule our lives, because Jesus conquered death, hell, and the grave. And now we hear that in the 15th chapter of the book of Corinthians, which deals almost the entire chapter with death and what it means now and the future of our resurrection. There is a little statement in there in which he says, "Oh, death, where is your sting? And grave, where is your victory?" Wow. He completely identified, but he started by humiliating himself, emptying himself, and then being obedient all the way to identifying with our death. And then he invites us to identify with his death. He talks about that constantly. Now, that death isn't a happy thought, but it's been absolutely turned upon its head, and it now simply becomes a transition between being in the body and being present with the Lord. It's just now a matter of location. When I die, my spirit and my soul go to be instantly in the presence of the Lord. No longer a fear of the grave, no longer a fear of Sheol, no longer a fear of an intervening time where men are separated from God and from their body and are being dealt with according to their soul in an undisclosed location. Now it is fully disclosed. Death now means for the believer, those who have placed their faith in Jesus as the Messiah, that once they die, they go and they stand in the presence of the Lord. That's the place for believers. Otherwise, the hot place, the separation from God place with the enemy, is what awaits for those who don't know him. That's still a matter of fear for them. But it's not a matter of fear for those of us who have been released by that, by placing our faith in Jesus. Well, that should give us plenty to think about today, and to allow the Holy Spirit to minister deep into our spirit, and in turn into our mind, our will, our emotions, transforming us and changing us by His Word and by His grace. Lord bless you. I'll see you tomorrow.